I just got settled in here. It's October 10th. This is a really small piece of permission that we picked up last season. On October 7th, I think it was, last year, we had our first nice buck show up on camera on this property. He was just a solid 9-point, really wide deer, decent mass. We could tell that he was a mature deer, but whenever we have that scenario, we kind of just, as a default, we say, you know, he's 4.5. And honestly, if I had to put a guess on how old that deer was, I would, my best guess would be that he was 4.5 last year. Fast forward to this summer, it was the first summer that we had permission on this piece, so it would have been the first year that we were able to set up cameras in the summertime. We set up, I think it was 1, 2, 3, 4 cameras in the summertime over here, and they were pretty much in the same spots that we ran them all throughout last season, and never once did we get a picture of that deer. With that being said, I was getting pretty anxious as we got into October, ready to check some cameras to see if that buck had shown back up yet. Fast forward to last Friday, I took off of work early to come in, and I was going to do a hang and hunt that evening. Long story short, I got in this bottom. The wind was swirling like crazy, so I opted not to hang down there that night and hunt. But on my way out, I moved a camera, and I checked one. I checked that pond dam camera. Got back to the truck, went through the card. Finally, this buck has shown back up. To say that I was excited was an understatement. I mean, the pictures were not good of him whatsoever. He was standing right in front of the camera, so you couldn't tell much about him. You couldn't tell if he had grown at all or anything. But when he went to put his head down and walk by the camera, I could tell by the configuration of his tines on his right side, by his profile, that it was him. I got super pumped up at that point. I knew he was back. Saturday morning I got up. The wind was going to be perfect. I wanted to get in here and I wanted to check all the other cameras to see if he was on any of those, and so I bounced around. Actually got some good photos of him and what he looks like, what he's grown into. The pictures were blurry, but they were good enough to tell what he looks like, and he looks really good. He is an awesome buck. Same big wide frame. He's got really good mass for as wide of a frame that he's got. Super long beams, but this year he is a 10. He's thrown up a big G4 on the opposite side. We're guessing him to be 5.5 this year just because we were guessing him to be 4 last year. He is definitely going to be the primary target for sure on this property, but he's also probably going to be my primary target overall as of right now anyway. He's going to be the deer that I personally choose to spend most of my time focusing on. Now we've got other permission properties that we've got other target bucks on for sure, but this is the one deer that you know, as last season ended, I was really keyed in on and really studying pretty hard as far as trail camera photos and trail camera data from last year. And so I've just been anxiously awaiting his return, and finally he's back, and I'm super pumped to say that. So there's very few options to actually have a good setup and get a good hunt in and not get picked off on this property. It's very difficult to hunt the way that the terrain lays, the way that this draw runs, and the way that it lays. So you're forced to kind of really play it safe when you've got a property this small and you know that the target buck that you're after, more times than not, is not going to be bedding on this property. That forces us to basically focus on the rut, or at least that latter part of October going into the rut, going into November. But he will be here during the rut as long as he's not killed by a neighbor or something. But as you get further into the rut, it's just going to be that much more difficult, you know, because of how crazy and chaotic and random the rut is. So I feel like our best bet to get on this deer is going to be here in the next couple weeks, here in the mid to late October time frame. So we'll see what happens. In the meantime, just gonna play it smart and only come here when the conditions are perfect for it, and hopefully we can play the game with this buck. Surprisingly, it's been a pretty slow night. I do think that this is a really good spot to at least get an eye on him and potentially get a shot at this deer. This property is just so small. I mean, it's tough to hunt, but as long as we play things right and, don't get too aggressive and go pushing deer around over here too much, I think we've got a pretty good shot at this deer this season. So. This is a spot that I had marked on Onyx from last year that I really wanted to get to this year. I sat back down this line in late season last year a couple of times, a handful of times, and it seemed like a lot of the deer were coming out in this low spot in this field right here. And so I told myself, on the right conditions this upcoming season, as in now, that I was going to push back in here. Be really nice to see one of these mature deer that we've got on camera over here. There's only one of them right now that I would even consider possibly taking a shot at, and that is this old, big-bodied, tight-rack 9-pointer. I'm calling that deer Ray, I decided. I saw him multiple times velvet scouting in the summer. Passed that deer last year at like 50 yards with a muzzleloader. So yeah, I mean, there's a little bit of a history there, but he's just a really cool deer. And I know for sure that that deer is 5 years old, so he is really the only one that I'd be interested in.